Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome back on The Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rod with Power Group. Today is Thursday. It's March 23rd, 2023. Hope you're all well. And joining me today is Charlie Bowman, HEXO Corp's President and Chief Executive Officer, as well as Julius Intro, who is HEXO's Chief Financial Officer. And I'll start off by saying that this is truly something that the HEXO community has been waiting for now for at least a couple of years. And it's an honor to have you on the show. But Charlie, Julius, welcome. And thank you for taking the time to do this today.
Thank you so much. Glad to be here.
Appreciate the chance.
Absolutely. So getting started, before we get into too much of the heavy questions, I just wanted to start off by saying for I know a lot of people are French. So for those that are viewing in, just a public service announcement, unfortunately, there's no subtitles that you can use to translate during this live stream, but after the live stream, you'll be able to use subtitles and Google Translate directly on YouTube. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And also I had about 120 questions at one point from myself and the community, and thank you to everybody who contributed. But like I said, it's a long time coming. Time's finally here. It's an honor to have you on the show. Got the questions down to about 30, so we'll try to keep it as short and sweet as possible. But at the outset, perhaps you can both just give us a quick minute overview of where you're from and how you got involved in the cannabis space, maybe starting with Charlie.
Sure. Something a lot of you guys may not know is Julius and I actually have worked together for almost 20 years. In the specialty chemical sector. And the reason I got in, I'm by trade, I'm a chemical engineer and a food scientist. Got a number of patents in extraction and different types of areas around the function of an ingredient. And we look at cannabis the same way. And I got into this business because I saw firsthand the benefits that cannabis can have as someone's at let's call it the end of their life. Suffering from cancer and the benefit that cannabis brought, especially to stimulate the appetite. So that's the reason I got into the industry. And as soon as the team asked me to come up and take over as a CEO role into the Canadian operation, I reached out to Julius and asked him to be on board to help lead this turnaround. Rob, I apologize. You were muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you for that, Charlie. And yourself, Julius?
Yeah, sure. So I have I'm basically a finance career professional with extensive experience, just pretty much coming from the private equity space. And, rightfully or wrongfully, a lot of that has been in turnarounds. And so when Charlie, called me up for the opportunity here with HEXO, I felt like it was really in my wheelhouse on updating, kind of right sizing the organization, creating a stronger balance sheet and then driving the business towards profitability, which I've done successfully in packaging, specialty chemicals, and water sensors. So it's been a great ride so far here with HEXO over the last year.
Absolutely. Well, you're doing a great job. Keep up the great work, and we'll get right to it. I do have a lot of questions, as I mentioned, so we'll start off with sort of some financial questions. A lot of investors, first and foremost, again, I kind of, pride myself on working for retail, and I try to I am a retail investor as well, but I try to put myself in their shoes as much as possible. And a lot of investors were concerned about why HEXO didn't do any conference calls in the past for the last few quarters. Could you maybe shed some light on what the PR plan is going forward?
Yeah, look, I'll take the lead. When I came up, we had quite a bit of things we had to take care of. The first is to reestablish why you would want to be a part of the HEXO family, why you would want to buy those HEXO brands. And that took a lot of energy. And in as far as the communication was, we needed to find where our bedrock was, and then basically how to communicate afterwards. And so for us, the initial plan is to provide all the details that we had to do to be in compliance. And then the next tier is, what are we doing going forward? And so what we really put ourselves around is to be that preferred cannabis experience. That's what the launch of the TNT strains were all about. We now have the strains starting to launch across all the country, which has been really good. We initially kicked them off into Ontario. And the goal with the PR plans is we would go forward as a standalone company. We'll continue to have the different calls and reach out. We did a series of interviews when Julius first got on board. And then afterwards, we've been basically opening it up. But that was the big reason is we had so many things we had to do initially. You just couldn't concentrate on everything. And we didn't know where and quite frankly, I needed to find bedrock.
Yeah, that's what I said to a lot of people too, is more than likely you guys still getting accustomed to the business and getting familiar with everything, comfortable, and yeah, it's a crazy industry out there, and things change almost like working in the IT industry, technology, right? It's just things change a mile a minute. So thank you for that. And next question, did we bottom in terms of sales that are not profitable yet? Can we expect growth from now on, or is there still going to be products that continue to be discontinued?
Yeah, I'll jump in and Joyce can add some more flavor. What we initially tried to do was get rid of the sales that really weren't contributing. In some cases, we had some sales that were under variable contribution. So you wanted to get rid of that noise right off the bat. The second tier was to establish really where our core growth was. And so, as I said earlier, Joyce and I had worked together for over 20 years. We kind of divide and conquer in different areas. So Joyce took the role of the supply chain, and the key area there, along with finance, was look to see what really was our strongest earning products. Where do we have the most differentiated products, unique products into the marketplace, and then how do we get those into the market at a fair price? Joyce, do you want to add any color on margins and lifts in those areas?
Yeah, so we did the SKU rationalization from the initial get-go. And so we took the majority of that out. And it wasn't only just products that were low margin, but slow moving. And we wanted to basically take down our inventory levels and have more greater production efficiency. And so we've done the majority of that. There will be time to time as products, call it our end of life cycle and our aging out, that we might make some moves to cycle that inventory to cash. But to your direct question, are we on the other side of SKU rationalization? And the answer to that is yes.
Okay, thanks for that. That helps. And in terms of market share in Quebec, that was something that came up a lot in the questions from retail. Was it mostly craft that disrupted that, or how much of the declining sales attributed to a loss of market share from the craft market, or was there some other reason?
There was definitely craft. The illicit market has taken down quite a bit of market share in Quebec from all players. You can see that across the board. The other factor that came in is the Quebec board has shrunk the number of SKUs that were available to different stores. And so their goal is to have smaller SKUs with higher velocity and then bring in through their nursery program some of the new SKUs. So you have to kind of earn your route to get into those marketplaces. And then they delisted a number of SKUs. In many ways, a lot of people complain about Quebec, but in some ways, the Quebec market is the most simplest into the area in the fact that they control the stores, the retail outlet. They have a pretty efficient week by week ordering, so they have really fresh product into the marketplace. In the margins, they set the margins into the areas of what you can and cannot make. So like I said, some people complain about it, some people don't. I figure that's the rules you have to deal within that market. So you figure out how to be the most efficient. And we've had success in the nursery program, and a couple of our new products are coming up in our OS flour. So the original Stash has been one of our core brands, and it's a bedrock into the Quebec market. It's one of the first that launched. HEXO has a unique industry. HEXO was the first company to launch in Quebec, and Redecan was the first product to launch into the OCS. So, you got two pioneers under one umbrella, and that's a really good thing to have when you talk about legacy and the strength and all the differences that goes on in the marketplace.
For sure. And real quick, you mentioned the black market. What sort of categories did they excel in? Was it mostly flour?
Well, in Quebec, they own the vape market because you can't sell vapes.
Right.
You also see them coming in quite a bit across the entire country in the edible market, in these really high percentages that you'll see into these gummies and other edible foods. It's an interesting market because you can go down in downtown Toronto and go into an illicit store and buy product. So it's one of those where eventually the government will realize that by allowing that store to be open, they're losing their own retail, sales that they're able to get through the taxation. And so I look forward to the day that they actually stamp in and squelch this.
Totally. Okay. Well, moving on, you mentioned as well in the recent earnings call about the price war, and a lot of people found it kind of ironic. How much of the price war did HEXO start, in your opinion, with the original Stash, the bake sale brands, and that value segment?
Look, there's been 4 tiers into the brands. There's a premium craft brand that comes in. There's a boutique high end. That's the tier 2. That's where Redecan sets. which is because of its hand trimmed, hang dried, individually cultivars, very unique, high terpenes, high THC products. You end up getting then we'll call it more of the bulk in the tier 3, and then there's the bottom 4, the bottom tier, which is the commodity. Bake Sale is clearly in the bottom, and Original Stash has been a tier 3, and Redecan is a tier 2. We've lived and haven't changed our price points into those categories. What happened in September was some folks needed to make some money. They dumped product in the market, and then all the market decided to follow. It's a suicide mission when you're a major LP, or if you're a craft brewer, to basically take $2, $3, $5, $20 out of a package that you were selling, because it's very difficult to get those prices back up. We didn't participate. You see it in the margin rates. They lifted from 40 to 45%. That also went with our product mix. And now that the boards have established back up kind of those floor prices and are holding people to it, we're seeing higher velocity in those brands that we've always had in those 4-tier categories. I will put one other piece in here, and then maybe Julius wants to add some different color into the price war. What was really interesting about this is we now have at each price segment that we participate, the highest THC, the highest terpenes at the same price. We felt like that was a fair price to value. And so what we're looking for as we go forward here is we see higher velocity at these strains. But it was a brutal setting on the sidelines watching this thing take on. No one wins in a price war, especially market leaders.
Yeah, let me just add to that is when we started getting market intelligence about the pricing that was happening, we went in and looked at our brands and our offerings and looked at what the price elasticity curve is here. And we really felt like from where we were sitting that we have fair pricing for the market, and didn't want to participate that, because from a cash perspective and EBITDA perspective, we would have been upside down. So we were comfortable with a lower sales number, but a higher profitability. As Charlie alluded to, our gross margin rates went up by 5% from Q1 to Q2.
That makes sense. Okay, thanks for the color on that one.
May I ask one more? Is it okay if I ask one more a little bit? Sure. So the other part that come out of that is we knew we were launching the new TNT strains. So why drop price and then basically take out of your pocket with those new strains that's come in? One of the strains is called Animal Runts. We launched it into the Ontario market. It was the first one. We just recently set a record. We sold 6,000 3.5 grams in one day. I mean, wow. It made sense to hold the line. Yeah. And the other part is that I didn't mention, there's a most favored nation clause across all provinces. So if I offer Quebec a price, I have to also offer Ontario and Alberta. There's a little bit of difference there with taxes. Yeah. So when you get into a price war in one market, you basically get it into all markets at one time. And that's the maturity that I think the market will learn as it goes on.
Is that why you're focusing on the Ontario, or is it just purely volume and population?
Ontario is the biggest market, so we put an emphasis there. We call it the Big Four. Quebec's a home market for us, so we put a lot of emphasis in Quebec. We got specific products that we only sell in the Quebec market for the Quebec market. And then Alberta is the biggest pre-roll market, and it's an incredible market for us. And we're seeing explosion in growth in BC right now. So those are the Big Four. That doesn't mean that we ignore Nova Scotia or Manitoba, Saskatchewan. I don't want it to come across that way. But what we do now is, in SKU rationalization that Julius talked about, we don't have unique products in the smaller provinces. We have unique products in the big provinces, and then we spread them out so that we get efficiency in our operations, and that we can also get improvements so that the freshest products get to our customers. The last thing you want to do in cannabis is have product that are a year and a half old, because you lose the terpenes, you lose some of the aromatic sense that comes on with the product, as well as it just gets crispier. So that's why we try to get these fresh. I'd love to put a born on date on the packaging, but the boards are against that because some of our competitors can't do it.
Right. Okay, that's a good point. Well, I'm from the Maritimes originally, so you can't leave us out. But I live in Western Canada now. I live in Edmonton, Alberta. So, but yeah, definitely a big purchaser of the pre-rolls here myself as well. Last question I'll speak to with regards to financials. Under the shareholders equity section, there was, and this might be a question for Julius, there was 1.5 million worth of shares issued as part of a licensing agreement. Would you be able to just shed some light on who this went to and why?
Yeah, so that was we have an agreement with T2.0 that we basically launched in the fall, and so we've been happy about that relationship, and that was just the upfront payment to get that business. And just to kind of give note, we are exclusive in Canada for the T2.0 brand.
Right.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I can add some color. You know, a lot of people ask questions about it. We could pay cash, or we could give them in stock, and they grow with us. They live with us as we go forward, and so that's what we did.
Yeah, they have a vested. Obviously, if you go with equity, it's a vested interest for their success. You can write them the check, but obviously, when we talk with them, we've had a good relationship with them. Is they were excited about our future and what it could provide, you know, and the upside that it presents, you know, for them, with a very minimal dilution to, you know, our shares. It's just very advantageous for us.
Right, and it speaks volume to the amount of partners that HEXO's getting from a manufacturing standpoint. Seems to be the preferred manufacturer, and
Yeah,
I will also add some more questions to the Tyson T2.0 brand. But
we're not allowed to say that man's name because he's a celebrity in Canada. So
I can say it. It's fine.
You can, I can't. But let's talk a little bit about the T2O. Let's dig here for a second. It's the hottest brand in Michigan, one of the hottest out of the West Coast. It's one of the fastest growing brands. There's an element that's coming out that's going to be focused in on the health and wellness sector, where we'll look at lower THC and higher CBDA, CBG, some of the minor cannabinoids that can come into play in this. The straight edge is an incredible looking product. It's black with a red tip paper into it. It's got our new filters on. We featured Legendary Larry. It was one of the very first strains that we featured out, which was selected by the group. We're coming back with Skullcap, which is the next area that comes in, which is a fantastic strain, really high THC, very unique terpene profile in that. And then what we'll be doing is rotating in some of our new TNT strains, some of our new genetics into this profile as it goes forward. So it's been a great relationship, and it gives us a chance both in flower and in the straight edge pre-roll. And then we also are launching in one of the brand new vapes, which uses the flavors that are predominant in the US, and it's a unique flavor to the T2O brand. And you'll see T2O being used more and more in the US as the US, some states are having the same laws as Canada where you can't use a celebrity's name. So we're pretty excited about it.
Yeah, just one thing to add that if you get a chance is if you look at their social media campaign, it's really quite original. And even though that's primarily focused in the US, we do expect as people see that on Instagram and so forth, that they'll go seek that product in the Canadian market. But they've done a really great job on their social media campaign. I mean, some are really quite funny and original.
Definitely. Yeah, I took a look at the website. I definitely had a few chuckles. But yeah, I have some questions with regards to that a little bit later on. But with regards, it was a nice segue from the TNT strains. And the TNT stands for like high THC, high terpenes, right? Is that kind of where it comes from?
Yeah, I mean, it came out in an interview one time where we talked about the terpenes, we talked about the TNT, and unfortunately, sometimes I ad lib a little bit, and Julius doesn't get a chance to kick me, and I just said it's TNT, it's dynamite, and it took on. It is trademarked, so, but it really is about. That's what the cannabis experience is around. High THC, fair prices, and then the terpenes give you that ability to feel the different areas. Some are gassy, some are old school funk, some are fruity. And these new strains that we've come out, what our master growers set down, and we've got what I think is the best fleet of master growers in the industry. If there was a contest like an Iron Chef for master growers, I'd rule them overnight. Because our team looks at not just yield, they look at not just how the plants grow. I'm 6'1". Our plants in Fenwick stand about 4 or 5 inches taller than me, and they're wider than the fattest Christmas tree you've ever seen. We don't grow Charlie Brown Christmas trees. We grow massive plants with incredible terpenes, incredible buds, and then we place them into the market. And what you'll end up seeing in that TNT strains is the next generation, we've already got in the queue. So let me come back. When Julius and I came on board 8 months ago, It takes about 6 months to pick your strains, to put the strains in, to go through the mothers, then to go from the mothers in the cloning process, to get into the ground, to harvest them. We do a very unique way that we hang dry. We don't basically burn all our terpenes off during the drying process. It's very unique. It's boutique, very similar to what you'd see in a craft operation, or in some cases we have craft people come in and learn from us, and that's what they're using. We hand trim these products as they come out. And then when we put the TNT onto the market, we pick strains specifically for that terpene profile, and then anything from 25% up in THC. So we get both the CB1, CB2 reactors. In some cases, we have incredible THCV, we have CBDVA, you name it. We've got the different terpenes, minor cannabinoids we're looking at, and that's what people are liking. What's interesting, Animal Runts is in the market right now. And it's at a point where we're getting ready to sell out of it, and it'll be running into our next one. In the Ontario market, it's Violet Fog is coming on, and Violet Fog has almost 3% terpenes, and it's a unique terpenes. It's fruit up front, gas in the back.
Yeah.
Most time you either get a gas or you get a fruit. You don't get them both. And so when people smell this, you almost see them. They kind of step back, like, wait a minute, I didn't expect that. And so I think from the standpoint of the experience that we're looking for, that's why we want to be that preferred cannabis experience, is to give people unique experiences with these incredible cannabis that we grow.
And I haven't noticed a major increase in just the terps in the Bake Sale brand. I can't wait to try it, which leads me to my next question. When do you, I think I know the question, you're running out in Ontario. So when do you think we could see this distributed nationwide to, the rest of Canada?
They're coming right now. They've already been shipped. It's the timing of the boards of when they opened up. So the very first one was Ontario. So we were able to get into Ontario the fastest, and in Saskatchewan. So we got into those two markets first, and then we slowly launched the rest of it as they come in. So we'll have the Sex Panther out west. We have Violet Fog coming to Alberta. We have Animal Runts, which was featured in Ontario. We also have Violet Fog and Ghost Gelato featured out east. From Quebec all the way through into the Maritime. So we've got what we try to do is instead of launching all the strains in one market and then they compete against one another, we spread them out, and then we start shifting them around depending on consumer feedback, and then we'll take the next generation. There's something else that's unique about Redecan. We bust 50 seeds every 2 weeks. Meaning we go in and actually crack seeds, we plant them, we go through, we look at that testing methodology, and then we basically now have a program to wear the crown, as we call it. So less than 0.5% of all the strains that we test will ultimately make it to our crown. But what that prevents us from doing is paying $200,000, $300,000 for the right of a strain, and then basically being able to take it out in the marketplace. It's a way in which we control our own intellectual property.
Okay, great. Well, you got me pumped up. I can't wait to try the new strains, and I'll definitely be doing some product reviews and giving feedback from my perspective. And then next question, in terms of the fourfold increase in pre-roll capacity, is that, in your opinion, enough to meet the current demand, or is there a plan to expand that capacity even more in the short to medium term?
Yeah, so we have enough to meet existing capacity and also provide a fair amount of growth. Also, too, is just as important to say is we did all of that without a CapEx investment. So that's really just working with our engineers and our internal team to really drive that output. And obviously what that does from a fixed cost perspective, being able to spread that out over 4x the volume is very accretive to our gross margins.
Okay, thanks for that, Julius. And one thing
go ahead. No, to that others. When we sat down a year ago, what is unique about HEXO? First thing was the straight edge. The convenience of the 10-pack, how you can place it into your pocket, the discreetness of it, the ease of smoke, the fact that it doesn't burn the back of your throat, all those incredible areas. We needed to improve the draw. So we did that with the filter. The second tier was, what do we do about the paper? It smokes like a cigarette. What do we do to make it smoke like a joint? We're in the process of getting ready to launch that, and we believe this will revolutionize the straight edge market. So instead of having a product that's going to smoke like a cigarette, it's going to burn like a joint with hemp paper. Once we launch that, The trick is how much you're going to need in capacity. Julius was spot on. We took our engineers and the others, did it without CapEx. And now it's like, okay, now go sell it. So we've done some private label, and you can see those in the market. And we've got great partners that we do the private label for. The other side is to improve and change our price point, because that gives us the ability to have the lowest cost pre-roll in the market, which anytime the dynamics in this market where there was so much overcapacity and so much price, compression, you want to make sure that you have the lowest price grow, which we do, the lowest price areas to do your pre-roll. For us in the straight edge, no one's close. And then you drive the market to those points of differentiation. And that's what we tried to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. And you mentioned the new inhalation and filter. I've seen actually on the Instagram profile, they were manufacturing them, and I saw, there was like thousands being produced, and they had the new filter. What has been the response so far from that new filter? Because I even brought it up to HEXO that they didn't burn very well in cold temperatures. So definitely the draw was an issue, especially in colder temperatures. But what has been the feedback so far?
Exactly what you said. We don't have the problem with the draw. There is no resistance into the draw when you actually pull in an inhalation. So the benefit of this new filter is it helps your draw, helps you basically pull in, but it also gives you that same benefit of not getting the burn in the back of your throat. So the benefits that you got out of the straight edge, you're going to continue to get it with the new filter. And for us, we're the only that filter. We're the only manufacturer of that filter in the world. That machine is very unique. We've had everybody wanting them. I'm like, no, you get the old filters. Everything that goes on our product and the T2O have the new filters into them. Okay. And the filters are fantastic because we've also got them now to where you'll see the new filters. They'll be black on the outside, green on the inside for the T2O. It'll be black and red on the inside. And you'll see down the road with Bake Sale, maybe even some of the original stash, we'll have some different price points that we place into the marketplace. And again, our goal is we're going to compete directly with the V-Cone and take on that market, because we see more infused products coming into that area. We have the natural capability to do that, as well as best cost position. So it's a natural point for us to expand our market. The trick for us is to get the strains so that then you can get the capacity and then go chase the market.
Right. Yeah, and that was something a lot of people brought up as well. They were concerned, I've seen other competitors release, like I think Oxley has one, right? And then, they had, but the thing with HEXO is they're always one step ahead. And then if you look at the readies now, they're 0.4 grams per unit, whereas the others are still mostly 0.35 grams. And then, like you say, the new filter technology as well, that is proprietary and only offered to yourself and the T2.0 brand, and then the rest get the old version, right? So
Julius is going to roll his eyes for a second. Let's go geek for a minute here. You take a cellulose acetate filter, which is a cigarette filter, which is what most people are using. It's designed not to give you a draw, to basically retain the tar any of the more. That's the way it's designed to do. Don't ask me how I know this, because that was part of our past life that Julius and I had when you actually ways that they make those filters. And so the new filter is designed to give you basically zero resistance. In addition to that, it fits in line with what some of the technology we got from the Redecan team, which incredible areas of understanding on how to run those straight edges. I mean, there's something you got to put out here. Our original shareholders have been phenomenal to us. If we have questions, we reach out, they talk to us. In the areas around the straight edge, because of its linked back to the cigarettes, we've been able to reach into the original Redecan team that came on. And anytime we had questions, they were able to help us. They've never sold a dime of shares that we've gone through. And, it's been an incredible run for us. So for us to be able to tap into that market, knowing it's differentiated, is exactly what we want to do in the marketplace.
Right. Well, HEXO continues to be a leader in innovation, and just want to say, keep up the great work. Congratulations on all the private labeling and everything as well. And to touch more over on the Quebec market, what is the status of edibles? Like I was on there yesterday on the SQDC, and I noticed there's quite a bit of edibles on there now. Still none from HEXO. I know there was a lawsuit as well. Maybe that put a damper on things, but is there any plan for edible entry into the Quebec market?
No. I mean, look, we'll have some of our concentrates. Hash is the big market in Quebec. That we've got one of the best brown hashes in the marketplace. If you haven't tried it, it's one of the best products you're going to find. That's where our core areas comes in. The edibles are a lawsuit waiting to happen with the way they're being made and the others. I'm a food scientist. I'm not a fan. Now, the gummies is a delivery system, which is commonly used. You see it a lot in the States and those areas, and we'll definitely participate in that. But to put a product into a cookie or other types of it's a lawsuit waiting to happen. It's not in compliance with Health Canada. Eventually, you're going to have products recalled. I've told it to the boards and the others. It's that truly is playing with dynamite.
Okay, thanks for that. And just real quick in terms of the medical patients, is there a reason why we saw such a drop off in those numbers?
Yeah, one of the areas is with the integration. We've seen medical patients across the board fall off quite a bit. Neither HEXO or Redecan had a government program, so we're not insurance. All of our medical patients are predominantly folks that have a prescription, and then they come in, they pay it out of their own pocket, and then they either have to get reimbursed by their own pocket, or they basically have to pay it out of their, like I said, out of their pocket. And so what we've done is, in a sense, we've revitalized the medical. We're getting ready to relaunch some of the programs. We've reached into the medical, the government programs. I'm very proud to say we've got a nice program getting ready to be that hasn't closed yet, but it looks quite promising in the area of veterans. A lot of veterans use these areas for calmness and wellness, and we've got some phenomenal products for that. And that's not just really high THC. That really is total cannabinoids. It fits in line with some of our new CBD Kush and the others. And so, yeah, that's predominantly where we're at. But as far as saying that we're out, we see the last couple months, we've actually seen, the last 4 months, we've seen an increase month to month into our medical. But until we actually tap into the medical market and have insurance access, we're not there. So that's why we did the deal with Entourage is you can actually order it 3 o'clock, 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have it delivered by 7 o'clock through the Entourage. We'll never be able to duplicate that. So it was a great partnership. We grow for them. They have their access into the medical side. And again, you'll see that continue to increase.
Gotcha. Okay. And real quick, I know we're getting tight on time. So I think I know the answer to this. The reason the Reddies weren't in Quebec, again, another lawsuit waiting to happen, or, they didn't like the fact that they resembled cigarettes. Has there been any more discussions on that? Any progress at all?
Yeah. I mean, I'll answer it. Julius, you want to add any color to it?
Yeah.
You go ahead. You go ahead.
Yeah,
you had more discussion.
Yeah. So, Charlie and I have met with SQDC on several occasions, and just given their profile, it's just not something that they want to encourage. Because as you did say, it looks like a cigarette, and it's not a HEXO thing. It's just really just within Quebec. They want to participate. They want to be in cannabis, but they're only going to play with very tight guardrails in terms of product offerings. Okay. No more, no less. I mean, we would love it, right? We think that there would be a tremendous amount of growth for us, but it's just not an opportunity that we can tap right now.
Some of our highest sales are in Ottawa. So people come across the board. They come across the border to buy. So those stores don't want them. When we put the hemp paper out, we're going to revisit, and we'll see where it goes from there. Okay. But look, you gotta each province has its own rules. We play within the rules, and we want to be the best player in that. So we respect it. We go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And then last thing with regards to Redecan, how is the relationship with the Redecan folk, like the Montours and Redecan?
Well, Rick's our master grower. I mean, he's the Yoda of all the growers that come on into the group. I put his strains and his techniques against any grower. Like I said, if there's ever an Iron Chef contest, we win, hands down. Now, what's interesting is with the Montours and the Redecans, which were the founders of Redecan. Like I said earlier, they have every dime of every share that they had. They haven't sold a bit. They've been fantastic to work with. We need help from time to time, or a lot of times it's industry information on how they were successful in some of the marketing programs, how they were successful in the cultivation. Remember, we have the world's largest legal outdoor grow facility in Cayuga. Now, people will go back and forth with me on that. I'm like, prove me I'm wrong. That means you bring down close to 50 tons in 7 weeks. Find another grower that harvests 50 tons in 7 weeks and brings it down. That's a hard process to do. And the Montours and the Redecans were instrumental in putting that together. in those plans. It's a combination of just incredible distribution. It's a logistics nightmare. It's a people nightmare. All those things come together, and it's a beautiful thing when you see it. It makes magic music.
Yeah, just to add to that, the Montours are a member of our board of directors and are quite active in board meetings, challenging us and also providing, advice and counsel on non-scheduled meetings. So it's a great relationship, and they've been very helpful.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that.
And look, I can say the same. I mean, I periodically have had been able to reach out to the founders of HEXO, and they've been equally good. So everybody wants this company to be successful. Look, this industry's gone through an amazing turn in 24 months, 18 months. When we got on board, we took our medicine. So a lot of the other LPs are in the process of getting ready to go through the same impairments, other areas that they have to go. And so whether it's right or wrong, this industry is a good industry. It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you that. It is dynamic. We think that putting out these new TNT strains, we test those with pharmacopoeia test methodology, and people want to have questions. I'll be more than willing to answer those offline or other areas. What you do in those areas is you use the same test methodology you see in California and Colorado, Oregon, Michigan, and what you'll see in Germany and the EU. Once you get those tests down, then it's a matter, we test all the way through the grow process. We don't just test at the end. So we use those good manufacturing practices. This is what we're going to grow and how we're going to grow it. We test through it. So we don't test for quality at the end. We develop that quality all the way through the system. And that's just part of that, that good manufacturing process that we want to instill across all the boards.
Okay.
Makes it very sustainable, quite frankly.
Definitely. And you mentioned the founders real quick on that. Like you mean Adam and SSL? Mm-hmm. Is SSL kind of come out of his shell, or what's happening there?
Everybody's unique. I mean, look, can you imagine how much of a heart it would have been to start these industries, to go through COVID, to come out of COVID, and then sell off the business like the Redecans did, or step back like Adam and Sebastian did. So right. I'm sure they need a blow and take a chance to take a rest, and then they'll come back. But no, everybody's been fantastic. Even former employees, and this is tough to say. We had to let go of a lot of people, great people. I can't tell you how many times I've got attaboy, way to go. First time positive earnings, way to go. You've got the first cash flow positive from any LP out of operations. And these are former employees that unfortunately I had to let go, which is not fun. But they're all a part of Team HEXO, and they want to see it to be successful.
Yeah, just to add to that, we were quite surprised with the earnings call that we did last week, just scrolling through some of the names. Mm-hmm. And then you see some of the names, and then whether it's a LinkedIn message or a text message afterwards, great job. I see what you guys are doing. So that's been very encouraging.
Awesome. Not sure if there's a dog in the background. It sounds like a
dog. That's mine. Yes, just grab the toy. Yes.
No worries. That's the rawness of these live streams, right? But no, and to your point, these founders, it must have been a lot of work, and they've got families and things like that, right? So there's always an exit plan, and then you got to deal with the illicit market and the burden that comes with that. And yeah, it's definitely a lot on the head, I would bet. So,
well, look, I'd say it differently. Joyce is a professional CFO, turnaround specialist, able to basically get us to get margin rates up. That's what Joyce brings to the table. It's immense gravitas. I'm not your traditional CEO or president. I'm more of a managing director. I always tell everybody the same thing. It's about to get the structure function, how to get that molecule, and then get it into the formats that the customers want. And that's part of the turnarounds that you end up taking a look at. And that's why it's a good combination where it works well for us. We know our roles and what we have to do. And I think now with the new strains and then the pipeline of strains, we're well positioned to continue to grow. But it's a growth story now. When you ask, a couple things earlier about market share and the others, our job right now is 100% grow that top line, because every sales now is a good sale. Everything throws cash off, and everything is in a sweet spot where it's differentiated. So when I came on board, about 60% of everything we grew were genetic commodity strains that you could get from Billy Bob's and Susie Q's nursery, or you could get from ours. We don't do any of that crap anymore. Everything we grow, we own the IP. They're very unique. They have high THC. In some cases, we're the highest THC and highest terpenes in the industry, any way you want to test it. And again, we use pharmacopoeia test methodology. So we don't use any of the monkey labs and the other stuff that people want to come into. We don't shop our labs around and get our terpenes from this lab and our this from this and this from this. We have one lab. That's how we do the C of A.
For sure. Well, I see in the chat, a lot of people are asking about Tilray. So we'll switch gears here and we'll jump into some questions with regards to that. In the recent earnings call, you mentioned Tilray isn't just a debt holder, but a customer too, obviously as part of that strategic alliance. But how does sales to Tilray benefit HEXO? Like, does it come in as wholesale, and do they get a special price compared to other wholesales?
Julius, you want to answer? Or you want me to do it?
No. So basically, they get a competitive price, and we really do mean that they are not only a debt holder, they are a customer, and we consider them a tier 1 customer. It's been a great relationship. It's been a partnership, and it's been what we wanted it to be all along, from both sides. Also, too, it's an attractive business for us as well, and we're continuously looking to expand that relationship and increase those sales.
Could you scroll back down? Right there's one of the great products, but they also have the very first CBD product in the Soleil. That's a fantastic product for a non-THC. That's a fantastic product. A great product to produce. It's a fantastic product to get the antioxidants in your body, and that's part of the partnership. They are an incredible brand company. That's what they do. Tilray is a branding company. We have an immense brand in Redecan. It's an awesome brand. And Original Stash, the 2 hats that are above me, that come on the Canadian flag. It is a great relationship, and that is a fantastic product. And so where they have reach in areas, the goofiness about the distribution center in Canada is you're going to be limited to how many baskets you have behind the counter in these different dispensaries. Unlike the US, where the best product sells and you're going to basically win. In the Canadian market, it's set to make sure that everybody gets a seat at the table. And so if I can have my products that we produce back there, and I produce some unique products for my customers, they're going to be back there. We even have some smaller LPs and some larger LPs where we do grow, because that's what we do. We're a marijuana company. We are a cultivation company. And so we do that not just for Tilray, but for others. And we place that product into the marketplace through their channel and distribution. For us, it's in some cases, it's more profitable than going in there and taking one of our brands off the tape and put it on. So when you go to a dispensary now, you might see 12 baskets that are HEXO. But in reality, you might actually have 23 or 24 back there that came from our unique cultivation. And to us, that's the way you're going to grow this business and do what you do best and leverage it. And in the case of Tilray, they're one of the best marketing and branding companies that are in this space. So if any way we can team up with them and leverage that, we're going to do it.
Yeah. And I was speculating that this was all Redecan technology. That's definitely the Redecan pre-roll tech, right? These Rip and Darts, and then the Soleil Slims. Well,
I'm not going to give out that, we do produce products for them. I think you'll see that unique packaging. We're the only players that have that packaging in that area. So I think you'll see it from that standpoint. But yeah, it's a good product.
Okay, cool. And real quick, what are your thoughts on, I know you said it's important that you stay a standalone company. What do you think of the chances are Tilray buying HEXO either in short term or long term?
That's a Tilray discussion. That's not mine. My discussion is to make us the most profitable cannabis company out there, to get our gross margins up, to get cash flow positive from the operations. And, they're a debt holder. If they wish to convert it, then that's a good investment that they make. On the other side, they put a stake in the ground for us to take a hard look at how we would run our business. And so it's imperative that we run a good business, and that's what we tried to do. But one thing we're not going to be is everything to everybody. We focus in on very core areas, and that's what we do. And we want to be the market leader. We're the market leader in oils. We're the market leader in capsules. We're the market leader in pre-roll. Our goal is to get back to be the market leader in high THC, high terpene strains. So that's why I joke. TNT kind of came about, kind of ironic. But if you look at our strain portfolio and what's coming out, TNT is exactly our things that's going to lead us to the promised land in dried flower.
Yeah, and I've said that from time to time again. The thing that draw me into HEXO is the amount of the innovation. Also, like you're not trying to be everything to everybody. Like I said, I've done a video comparing LPs, how some of them, SNDL is into retail, not just alcohol, and they're into MJ retail, and then you got Tilray, who's into health and wellness distribution. They're into alcohol and MJ as well. And that was one of the things that really impressed me the most was that, I was looking for 100% pure MJ plays, and HEXO, like you said, leader in the space, leader in innovation, and just 100% pure MJ. So that's
for us, our focus, it's flower, it's pre-roll, and having the best grow out there. That is our competitive advantage, and our point of differentiation is our growth.
Definitely.
Yeah, and let's say, look, we don't have the cash to be everything to everybody. I'd love to have a diversified portfolio in other areas. I don't have enough cash to do that. So I have to do very well and make sure it's throwing cash off that I can continue to do my magic. Otherwise, somebody else takes it over.
Exactly. And then there was the Zenabis creditor. They filed for creditor protection. And then there was the stalking horse bid there from SNDL. That looks like they gained those assets. But did HEXO gain anything from that acquisition? In hindsight, would you have not have done it? Obviously, Redecan came after, so I would assume not. But was it all for nothing? What did you keep from that? Did you keep strains, IP, staff?
No, all the strains went back to the owner.
Okay.
I wasn't involved in that acquisition, so I think now, to be honest, if you put color on it, you're kind of jaded, so it's probably not there. But looking at the outcome, I think maybe another way to take a look at it, it's in good hands. Phenomenal people at Atherville that had that are now a part of the Sundial. Sundial's a good company, and so I think they're probably with the proper owner. I don't think HEXO, looking back now, probably was the proper owner of that asset. I tell you what, you can take from this though, is the magnitude of synergies that HEXO and Redecan have had, from a standpoint of being able to get some of the back office functions, financial functions that Julius and his team have brought to the group, combined with this incredible cultivation grow in market share leadership. And then we redid Masson, the massive grow facility in just on the other side of Gatineau that HEXO had. And we brought in some of the growers, master growers from Redecan into that site to help change the grow techniques. So when you see Original Stash now, as you mentioned earlier about bake sale, you said, hey, I've seen the terpenes come up. I've seen the THC come up. I've seen the bud size. I've seen the quality of the bud size that's improved. I think what you're seeing now, we hang dry in Masson, and we go through those same techniques that we talked about earlier that they're practiced at Redecan. We don't just cultivate. Everything now has gone through the irrigation system, the size of the lights. Everything was custom made now for those different cultivars that come through. And so that's when I can safely say we're the best cultivars in the business. Everybody wants us to grow for them, and we're going to grow for everybody. And that's how we're going to differentiate and sustain. But it didn't come easy. The team has been phenomenal. We've asked them to do a lot of things and a lot of changes. And as I said, we've had to let go of some really phenomenal people. That was really hard. But it's what we had to do to basically make this thing work. And now we're in a position now it's got to drive on the top line. So right now, as right now is probably the best time ever from a standpoint of being a part of HEXO, because the sky's the limit for us.
Awesome. Totally.
Just to add to that is, obviously 18 months ago, the industry was much different from the valuations, from people trying to be vertically integrated. And it doesn't really do anybody much good to Monday morning quarterback. I think it would be the case with us. Charlie and I weren't there, but the same thing is with leadership and the other LPs. If everybody had a crystal ball, none of us would probably be sitting here. We would be on a yacht somewhere. So,
yeah, and the bear market's been brutal, right? And especially when you see all other asset classes going up dramatically, and ever since really March 2020, and then we had a little bit of a run up there in MJ, but it's just been a brutal bear market. Obviously, heart goes out to those that lost their jobs and had to get affected by downsizing and whatnot. Certainly unfortunate, but a necessary step, obviously, like you mentioned. And yeah, it's been brutal. I know a lot of people are they're getting investor fatigue. They're just getting fed up with it. But unfortunately, it just is what it is. Doesn't matter if you're profitable, unprofitable, LP, MSO, retailer, everybody's stock price is down, 80, 90% in some cases, even more.
Yeah.
So it's just a sign of the times, right?
Correct.
So we'll speed up a little bit. We're almost through here. You already talked to the success of the Tyson brand so far, but what sort of products do you have in the market right now in Canada? We know that you mentioned these legendary OG, the Redecan products that have the red filter, and then you have ounces as well. Is that it for Canada?
Correct. The next product that'll be launched out of the T2O brand will be in the area of a vape. And we've got a very specific vape flavor that's coming out that is quite known in the US, and I think it'll be taken off. It initially goes into the Ontario market first, and it'll work its way across Canada. Okay,
thank you. And you've touched on Entourage a little bit as well. What kind of volume do you expect from that deal?
That's proprietary. I can't give you the volume into it, but it's a win-win situation. We do the grow for them, and they give us access into their medical channel, which is predominantly an insurance medical channel. So it's a market that we weren't tapped before. And so this is true upside synergy for us because we don't compete against ourselves, and we basically have the best of both worlds. We are better growers, and they definitely have an incredible position about being able to be in that medical, especially that one-day medical. If you order now, you get it that later the afternoon. That's incredible.
Yeah, it is. And was there any revenue from that deal recognized in Q2, the recent quarter?
Yes. I don't have the number off the top of my head, but we started off with some spot business with them, and then basically we're growing some of their strains. They're buying some of our product, so that relationship will be accelerating in the future.
Okay. And is that considered wholesale, or is it just strictly medical?
No, bulk sales.
So wholesale.
Okay, gotcha.
So when Charlie's alluding to the medical, it's basically buying through their portal as opposed to our portal.
Okay. And then you guys came out with some news recently about offering contract growing services. Could you maybe provide a little bit more color on this, the success so far with that, and can we expect more potential partnerships at some point soon?
Yeah, let me start and then Charlie can go into when I kind of came into the business and looked at some of the trajectories of the legacy HOI brands and saw that we had some unutilized capacity. So for me, I love contract grow, right? As I alluded to before, our grow is our point of differentiation. We have capacity. Also, too, is when I go with contract grow, I'm not paying an excise tax, which means I got to keep all the money. I don't have to pay for the feeds. I have a streamlined sales team. So when you look at the cost to serve for that business, along with the efficiencies, hey, by the way, this room is yours. So it's fantastic for us versus having a start, stop, bottlenecks in packaging. And so I highly encourage Charlie to look at bulk wholesale grow several months ago. And he can kind of speak to the relationships that he's developing.
That's a good point.
No, it is. It's also, like I said, look, the dynamics into the market is you got a finite amount of boxes behind you that feature your product. I call them baskets. And so if I can do what we do best, and that's in this area of cultivation, and we do it at a much better quality and cost position than our competitors. In past life, Julius and I, where we worked, we in specialty chemicals periodically would make products for our competitors because we had the best economy of scale, but we also had the best quality that came out. In the end, you actually make the products better to the marketplace. And so that's what we basically put in. It's a combination. Sometimes we bring their strain in, we test it, we make sure everything's right, and then we grow. Other times we use our strain bank and our data bank. Now, none of the TNT strains, because those are the unique strains that are going in the market, but some of our legacy strains and others, which have a really high following, we put out. It's been a good relationship so far. I think you're going to see more and more of it. And what it allows us to do is, again, go back to what we do best. We want to be the preferred cannabis experience. That means you've got to be growing the cannabis to be able to deliver that. And so that's the core area of our DNA. Be the best growers you can do at that highest THC, at that really high terpenes level, and then be able to brew it at the right price points. And that's what we think is going to be sustainable.
Right. Okay. Thanks for that. And then, obviously wholesale versus, paying those excise taxes. That's a great point. And then I've seen recently the Justin Trudeau and the Canadian government said that it's time for the government to get caught up and support the MJ industry. And it's been said that, some companies, LPs, are paying upwards of 30% excise tax from the revenue, right? And then we have I think there's a budget meeting next week. So perhaps maybe we can see something from that. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one is, so it's not only 30%, sometimes the tier's higher than that. And I don't think that it's any different than what you're seeing in the US, say in the California market, is that just the illicit market's still out there competing. How do you compete when there's a 30% just differential on tax, no tax? So anybody can kind of undercut you. And I think that there are some positive trends with legislation and some government relief supporting the business to ensure that this business is viable going forward. And, Charlie, what was the quote on the illicit market in Canada? 40, 45?
43%.
And so if you can bring that in, those tax dollars in by being competitive on a dollar basis, obviously that would be very attractive for the government.
Right.
I mean, you got 1,600 stores in Ontario, and a lot of those are individually owned, family owned stores. They're in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot. But equally, you've got some of the great brands, these massive store brands that have come on board. They also are burning cash. So eventually this thing, the well runs dry. And so any help we can get from the government would be great. I'd love to be able to sit down with Health Canada and talk about education, because I think that's one of the key gaps that's still there. And so hopefully we'll have that dialogue. Again, remember, this industry is 5 years old. This is not a 100-year-old industry, it's a 5-year-old, during which the world's pandemic occurred. So we also have to be fair to the bureaucrats, is that this end and the politicians, there's a lot of things that changed dramatically, stopped, and then changed again. So you got to get them a good chance to get their feet underneath them. But I am looking forward to some of the changes, and I think it'll help.
Yeah, and the fact that, like you mentioned, the U.S., they're going through the same thing. So you're not alone. You're not alone. I've done a video as well on Cureleaf. The founder there said that they'd already be paying a dividend more than likely if it wasn't for 280E tax code, and they've already paid about $330 billion with a B to the federal government in the U.S. So that's just a lot of missed revenue, right? And
but let's make sure, in the sin business, whether you're in tobacco, whether you're in marijuana, whether you're in alcohol, the government gets paid first. Sorry, that's the rules of the game. They're always going to they always are going to wet their beak first. Then it's going to work its way downstream from there. So look, you got to learn how to win within that boundaries. They're going to get paid. If they can help us from a standpoint of making sure it's more competitive, that's awesome. Definitely. But when you're in that business, gambling would be the same thing. You're going to pay first the right to operate. That's fine. Now we want to roll.
Right. And it's about maintaining that level playing field too, right? So know the rules of the road, then play within it. And then a question. This has been made tons of video on this one, and I know everybody's probably just, come on, let's get to it. The CPG partner, we were told that there was a Fortune 200 partner. We were told that it would be revealed in the coming weeks. That was about a year ago. And we were told that it was Molson Coors caliber. They said functional foods, think cookies, granola bars, maybe more. Did that deal fall through? Or, Kaiser has stated that Kaiser Partners, your investor relations firm that you've outsourced that to, said that all non-core projects were on hold. Is that still the case, or what's the status with that CPG partner?
I'll answer it just to make sure it comes through. And look, you've got a functional ingredient in marijuana, THC specifically. You got to be real careful about putting this into areas which could get its hands into minors or overdosing in different areas. And anybody that's ever had an edible and gone through a number of those, they've had a bad experience in other areas. So when you start to make products that look more like traditional foods, candies, cookies, other areas, you got to be really careful in how this product comes in. Again, I come back. Remember, I'm a chemical engineer and food scientist, so I'm going to look at it through the food laws first. I'd like to say I don't, but unfortunately I do. In this case with the CPG and the other companies, it also was, what's really the profit that's in for the business for HEXO about doing these type of deals? Are we basically doing all the work, all the branding, all the manufacturing, all the areas, and then pay a royalty to somebody and not make any money? If that's the case, it's a bad deal. And so when I came on, there was a couple of areas that were still potentially moving around, and the dynamics of those had changed dramatically to the point where it did not make any sense to continue those relationships. And ironically, it was brought up to me from their side before my side made those decisions. So The CPG, there is no CPG in the pipeline that's coming out. Now, that said, in the US, I can tell you there's a ton of people that have wanted to work with us to come in to take a look at non-THC products. Those will probably continue. In Canada, the same thing that's gone on. But in this area around Health Canada, they have to get this CBD legislation locked down. In the US, the FDA still hasn't taken a ruling on CBD because of their silly patent that they've granted to Epidiolex, which is a phenomenal product, but they ring-fence themselves into allowing an active pharmaceutical ingredient into the food industry, which is a no-no. And so until those things get cleared away, legislation-wise, you're always going to be in a position that if you launch a product, you're basically breaching somebody's patents. If you launch a product in those things, you've got liability that potentially can linger on. When we came on board, we had to focus in on those four walls, as Julius talked about, combined with what we are. We're a cannabis company. We're not a cookie company. So we're not going to make cookies. We're going to make cannabis.
Right. Yeah. And then there's the distribution aspect, right? Like, what are you going to, how are you going to make, you're going to do cereals and bars and things like that and make people go to the MJ store, dispensaries and things like that to buy it? Or it's like, you're not going to have it in a, a grocery food chain store,
Exactly.
right? So,
Right.
yeah, didn't really, that was one of my questions was, how is that going to happen if that was the case? Because I know they said they were piloting it in Quebec, and it just, that was always something that concerned me. But I kind of figured you were going to say that, but
it goes back to, call it 2 years back. Everybody wanted to be everybody, right? So you're in pre-rolls, you're in flour, you're in gummies, you're in vapes, you got cookies and so forth. And, kind of going back is when we inherited the business, there was so much to fix inside the four walls that you have to look at where do you have the biggest win, where you can stop, call it Rome from burning. And we did that, and this just wasn't a core focus for us.
Okay. Well,
I'll make it dollars and cents. I can do what we did on the pre-rolls, increase the capacity of the straight edge, put the new TNT strains, or I can put a brand out there that probably is going to have litigation around it, and it's going to cost me money. It's going to be negative margin. It's a no-brainer.
100%. Now that makes sense. I appreciate the color on that. And I've got about a half a dozen questions here, so we're coming on the end. We'll maybe answer these ones a little bit quicker. That's fine. I know we're a little bit over on time, but in terms of Truss Canada and Truss USA, sales took a big hit, obviously, because of the ceased revenue, right, from Truss operationalizing their selling license. HEXO reports on an equity basis going forward, right? Would you be able to just elaborate quickly on what that means going forward for in layman's terms?
So basically, just kind of gives. So basically, it was kind of pass through revenue with the minimum margin for us. And then as they had basically got their own license, we had about $1.5 million of revenue related to Beverage Truss in Q1, and that was zero in Q2. In terms of from a practical perspective, what that means from the P&L is should there be any type of sales, asset sales or things along like that, dividends and so forth, that would hit our books given the structure of the JV, but you won't see anything coming through the revenue line.
Okay.
Charlie, I don't know if you want to add anything on that.
Yeah, and then when you take a look at it, Truss standalone business, standalone from Molson Coors and us. We own 43% of it, and Molson owns the rest. And it's one of those where it goes back exactly what you said earlier. You go to buy that product, you have to go to the dispensary. Now they did open it up to a couple bigger cases you could bring in if more volume, but it's hard. They need to get that into the area for the alcohol sale. It's into the same jurisdiction within the different provinces. That's where that product belongs, and that product will take off when it gets into that area. But it's a tough business model right now where you're really hamstringing. It's in basically the size of a college refrigerator behind the shelf, as opposed to being in a large area. We could see really what the products come out. And so it's, in the US, it was basically sold to independent liquor store owners. And so it was this business model that didn't make any sense. So it doesn't mean it won't in the future, and even Molson made the comments they might come roaring back because they had a lot of learnings from this. But at the time, it was going to burn a lot of cash, and that's cash that neither parties was willing to put in there.
Yeah, and I did a video in Colorado. I went to Colorado and bought some of those in the in the liquor store there. And then Canada obviously increasing the drink limit from, what it used to be like 5 or 7, depending to, I think now 48 or 70 some of the XMGs, which is great. But it'd be nice to have like a 6-pack, 12-pack, 24-pack. Hopefully that's coming down the pipeline soon.
Yeah, I agree.
So in terms of Truss USA, the Colorado facility specifically, can you touch a little bit on an update with regards to licensing, ownership, and the use of that facility going forward after the shutting down Truss USA?
Well, Truss USA was independent of the Colorado facility, so we still have our Fort Collins unit. And what we've done right now is all the emphasis has been in Canada. I basically are either in Julius and I are either in the Fenwick facility, we're in our Effingham facility, or we're in the Masson facility, or we're with customers in the different boards. And so for us, we've had to basically pull back what we were doing in the U.S. and put everything in the emphasis on into Canada to get this turnaround. But the goal is we had a good solid business plan of what we were going to take on into the U.S. And if everything continues to move forward, we'll have the funding and we'll be able to do that. Okay.
How many days have you spent in Canada so far since becoming CEO?
I think my wife would say, how many days do you get to spend back in the U.S.? And so it's probably closer to that. But it's predominantly, and like I said, we split between those 3 facilities. But there is also, we meet with a lot of the boards, and obviously we have some incredible retail partners that we periodically are in the stores with them. Periodically, I get a chance to go into the boards and talk to some of the bud tenders. Also, get a chance to talk to the store owners or even some of the customers when they'll come in. We have a chance to talk through. So it's been, the cannabis industry is a great industry in that there's a lot of passion around it, and we have really good products. And I think the story for us is the marketing, and it's a commercial issue now, and so that's what we got to do is focus in on the commercial side.
Absolutely. And what are your thoughts on Sebastian St. Louis, the co-founder and previous CEO, his vision for HEXO? He stated in one interview that he wanted HEXO to become the Coca-Cola of the cannabis space. Is this still the goal?
Well, I mean, I think in the beverage sector, I think that's trust, and and now it's a matter of being able to get the distribution, and I think that possibly could come in. I think from our standpoint, we want to be the most preferred cannabis experience, whether it's in my brand or somebody else's. You want to know that you had that Redecan flower, you have that HEXO brand. That's kind of the areas that we want to try to focus in on. Where we had to make the pivot, as Julius said, 18 months, 3 years ago, everybody was dying to throw money into cannabis and try to see how big it was. We had over 450 met tons of capacity alone, just ourselves. Yeah. And so without the legalization into the U.S., without the legalization going into Europe, a lot of things, you had to get it to where the business was right-sized. And then you have the right to earn the rights to grow into that next space. Yeah. In time, I think you'll see cannabis, especially the terpenes, you'll see that become more and more dominant, where people go in, they're looking for that fruity, they're looking for that old school funk, they're looking for that gas smell, they're looking for that skunk smell. I think you'll see more and more dominance into that. And I think people will realize the minor cannabinoids, the value that they bring to the table, and how that actually helps your body feel. And you can't make a claim because of the way they come out, but people that experience the product understand what I'm talking about. The aches and joints and the pains, the back pain, the knee pain, the hip pain, the other areas, and these antioxidants of how they actually help. Yeah. I look at it as part of the natural, heliopath, the way in which to actually take a look and actually help in your body. And I think you'll see more and more dominance in that. In those spaces, there's leaders in those areas, and they will participate, whether it's through private equity, through some of the investments. But when you take a look at aromatics, you take a look at sensory, you take a look at that experience, there's brand companies that want to be a part of this. And that's when it'll move out of the syntax into the more mainstream. That will happen. It's the timing of the matter of happening. And people now are much more, cannabis was voodoo, taboo. People didn't want to touch it. It was the devil's weed. Now you're starting to see people talk about, hey, I need to get me some of that marijuana cream to put on my elbow because it feels a lot better in the church group. Once you get to that point and it gets to more mainstream, it'll continue to grow. Yeah, the stigma is a big thing, the devil's lettuce. Even my grandmother reached out to me and got me to get her some of that CBD cream and stuff, right? So she loved it. Well, in our minds, it went from the devil's lettuce to Colorado cauliflower. So that's what we refer to it now. And everybody loves cauliflower as an appetizer. So, it's got to continue to make it work. Yeah,
Absolutely. Well, just 2 or 3 questions left real quick. XMG drops and Molos are my 2 favorite from Truss, but I haven't seen those in Alberta recently. Any idea when those will be replenished in the Alberta market?
Yeah, I mean, again, Truss is an independent entity, so I don't know when they're going to come into the product. I know they have a ton of new products that they're launching when they come out, but their distribution, they're an independent company, so I can't comment.
They did reach out to me and sent me some promo items from the partnership there with their new craft beer, and maybe that's an idea for another interview at some point soon. I know it might be a little harder because they're private, but certainly something to consider in the future. And then lastly, with regards to Truss, in the MD&A management discussion and analysis, it says, as part of the company's ongoing assessment of the business plan and strategy, management continues exploring options, regarding the future of that joint venture. Has HEXO ever considered selling its stake in Truss, especially, with regards to financial woes and whatnot?
Well, we're continuously evaluating with our board on what our strategic partnerships would look like. No decision has been made. We met with the Truss team. What was that, like a month or so ago, just to talk about the relationship. So again, we're working with them. Everything's always on the table as it should be. Just being basically senior leaders with the company, we're constantly evaluating what the best path forward is for us.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. That helps. And just a couple left. In terms of USA legalization, the US market, regarding HEXO's USA entity, do you have a strategy in place? I've seen some verbiage as well in the MD&A, but do you have a strategy put forth for HEXO in a position to take advantage of that inevitable legalization in the USA? Anything you can
Absolutely.
add there?
That's the reason I got hired, was to build out and have it ready. I wasn't expecting to be pulled into Canada in the areas. We had a plan into the minor cannabinoids. It's documented. We had a plan on basically getting us around not having THC, but all the other aspects, and then taking those unique techniques. Extraction, we've got some unique capabilities out of the U.S. in extraction. We've got some unique capabilities in milling that comes in and preserves terpenes in other areas. And so we've got a plan. The trick right now is it's around, basically, we have to focus first on the Canadian market, Canadian retail market, and then this bulk area, and then we'll migrate ourselves out from there. But we had to get the marijuana side of the business, the cannabis side, lock and loaded before we could move to anything else.
Okay. And what about readies in the US? There was talks about white labeling for MSOs, and there was talks about, getting readies and gel caps into the US market. Is that something that you could foresee happening? Is it possible before federal legalization, or would that more than likely be afterwards, or is that not even in the cards at all?
No, it's anything that goes in those areas. The trick for that is you got to, if you're gonna supply to the MSO, you can't supply them with a marijuana-based product. So we have the techniques and the technology, and we do know how it's portable. That's one of the first things we did when we took that, multiplied almost 4 times fold of the increase in capacity, was to use those engineering and expertise of what we have to basically be able to push up without CapEx. And so we're ready. The trick here is, it's in the Biden administration and the Republican Party. Both parties want to make this happen. They're just trying to figure out how to get credit for it. So I hope they both stick a flag in the sand, take credit for it, and then legalize. And the first will happen in medical, and then they'll let the states decide. And some states won't. Idaho has been very adamant, and parts of Nebraska are very adamant that they're not going to legalize even CBD in some areas. And that's a state's rights. But let's get the medical opened up into the U.S. market, because we can help a lot of people. And like I said, I've seen it firsthand, and it's one of the areas where if you've ever seen anybody that's going through some form of disease, and others where they've got they can't eat, they're in pain, this is a way of giving dignity. And no one should be denied that. No one has the right to deny the dignity of a dignified death or a dignified end of life, either way you want to look at it. But this is absurd. And about 74% of Americans want it. The states that are used it have demonstrated that it works. So it's time for the legislatures to stick a flag in the sand, take credit for it, and pass it.
Couldn't agree more. And and then there's a question of, how does it get categorized? It's in the same level as tobacco, alcohol, all that would come after. But I agree that, give the people what they want, and, Germany's coming online here. They've already got positive feedback from the EU. They said that we could expect some sort of bills coming out soon, and then potential rollout in the beginning part of 2024. So any color, any thoughts on Germany or just the overall legalization effort in the US and in Germany as a whole?
No, look, the US, we're ready. In Germany and the others, we have Tilray as our partner. We leverage some of their infrastructure, EU GMP, other areas that they have that gives you access to those markets. We turned those customers that we had for export over to Tilray. That was one of the areas because we had to focus into the retail market into Canada. Great relationship. The German market's going to be an awesome market. The UK market, especially medical, will be a nice market when it comes online. And then, like I said, you'll see more. I don't think people recognize what Mexico will be as well. When you actually clean it up and it comes through, it's going to be a huge market. So,
to your point there, NATO, right? The North American Trade Agreement. If you got Germany coming on, the EU, as we know with the US, they're never first, but they're never last either. And then you got Mexico. So you got the NATO countries, you got the EU giving positive feedback to Germany. It's just a matter of time before the rest of the EU follows suit. And then even with the pandemic, the US wasn't first, but they weren't last to make all the decisions either, right? It usually came from the EU, and then we would see Canada, and then the US, and then Mexico, rest of the country. So it's
I'll blow some of your users' mind. One of the coolest conversations and some of the best technology we have is when you come down to certain levels of extraction areas where you can ensure that you're THC free, is Japan and parts of Asia, because they recognize that these 113 minor cannabinoids take THC out of the cave. There's some others that have some that have some areas that mess with the CB1 receptor. But you take those out of the hands, the health benefits of these natural products and then basically getting them in their purified form. You're not going to see the Asian markets not be a part of this. Now, THC will be a different story. But outside of that, they'll be participating. And in those cases, you won't be looking at products that are like, dollars per kilo, dollars per gram. You're going to be looking at $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 because that's the way that Asian market looks for that purity. Yeah. And again, that's where it comes out. If you can cultivate it and you can extract it, then you can basically place it into the marketplace because it becomes a value ingredient. And that's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, and it's that Eastern medicine mindset too, right? Mm-hmm. It's all natural, comes from the earth, right? So, no, that's great. Well, that brings us to the conclusion of today's interview. I want to thank you again, Charlie, Julius. Very excited about HEXO's future. Looking forward to speaking with you both again soon. But any closing remarks as we wrap it up?
No, I appreciate it. I know. I read Reddit and other areas and LinkedIn, senior things. I appreciate the comments that have come through. As I said, this is not a journey for a faint of heart. Marijuana, the whole cannabis industry is going to be a roller coaster as it goes through. I think we've positioned ourselves that had to be done, and now it's a top line growth story. And so our goal is all around, all the emphasis, every call, every day is around working for our customers, working for those retail stores with our unique grow to basically allow those cannabis customers to come back to those asking for these unique products. And I'm, like I said, I was proud as can be to the team when we sold 6,000 units of the animal runts in the Ontario in one day. And I would have loved to have sold 6,001, but we didn't have any more products. So that sold
more left. 100%. Well, I appreciate you. And Julius, any closing remarks?
No, thanks we appreciate the time. And then hopefully for your viewers, it gave a little bit of a background story on what's been going on with HEXO over the last, 10 months. And this is nice follow-up from our earnings release call that we had on Friday. So hopefully, any angst, got addressed. Of course, there's always going to be questions. It's a fluid industry. Very dynamic, but it's been a great ride so far. So thanks for the time.
Yeah, for sure. Well, again, it's an honor, and I appreciate you very much for reaching out, and looking forward to speaking with you again in the future. Keep up the great work, and have a great day.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. All right, going to end it there, guys. Hopefully everybody enjoyed the live stream today. I know that was very insightful for myself. Going to end it there, though. Thanks again for joining us on The Pursuit of Wealth. It's Rob with Powell Group. We'll welcome you back on The Pursuit of Wealth again soon, and we'll be trying to get a lot more interviews like this out in the future. I'm going to be interviewing the CFO of Cannara as well, so you can watch out for that. But make sure you have the bell ticked and subscribe. You'll be notified on any future videos or when I go live. Going to end it there. Hope you have a fantastic day. We'll talk to you again soon.